Good afternoon and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk about my weekly team review and also to answer some of your questions. As we always start off, reach out to us on our social media, Supercoach Insider and 100 on Twitter. We've got the YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud and Spotify. Really love the fact that people have been subscribing, sending us messages, commenting. It's all fantastic to actually sit there and talk with the Supercoach community. It's growing by the day, and it's good to see some of our listeners are doing really well and have started off the season and getting those rankings up high. For those who haven't, we'll try to work on that, and those who have, well, we'll do our best to try to keep you up near the top. So starting off with me this week, I scored it was 21.65. The graphic will come up for those who are listening at home. Things were looking really good up until the Sunday, and unfortunately, like a few people out there, we faced some difficulties with some injuries, and I'll get into that when I look at my team. So currently sitting 7,244 overall, which was a round drop of about 4,300. Disappointing, but in saying that, it is one of those things. I think 150 more points put me up to about 1,200, so it's not the end of the world. So anybody inside sort of that top 10,000, you're probably sitting 200 points from the top 200, from the top 1,000. So just little things each week, different captains, being a little bit more aggressive with some trades can see you straight back up there. So not all is lost at the moment, which is always a good thing. It's as we keep saying, it's a journey, not just an overnight thing for this. And we've got to just keep plugging away and hopefully not getting caught off with too many injuries. So going through my team, the disappointing thing was I had McRae vice captain, but didn't get the captaincy off him. Didn't get the captaincy on a loophole because I only had Hayes, and I was at the Essendon Adelaide game with Rochelle and Martin playing then, and I didn't have another option to put McRae on. So I was originally looking at Neil and McRae, but once O'Connor came in, I took the VC off Neil, thought I'd put it on McRae. I was pretty confident with Cripps as a captain anyway. He was 20 minutes into the first quarter, so that was looking like a good choice. I could have taken the risk and put Hayes on and then still whip the captaincy off him if he was still to be named. The problem I was worried there was I was confident Martin or Rochelle would probably go at least 70, maybe 80. And if Hayes was to come on late and only score like a 10, I could be costing myself 60, 70 points, which it would have ended up being that because Martin still scored 84 and I went Martin over Rochelle. And then, I was thinking, well, yes, McRae scored 158, but then Cripps has only got to get to sort of 100 and then he'll be much better than him. And he was always going to do that unless he went off injured. And unfortunately, as a lot of us have, he went off injured. So, it's one of those things that happens in footy. And sometimes, it's just best to, if you can, take that loophole option. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for me. So apart from that, I'm pretty happy with how my team's shaping with all the rookies at the moment. One of our co-hosts here, Chris, unfortunately missed out on getting Martin. So, for those who already have him in, which is a lot of us, that's not an issue at all. I really like the rookies and their break evens. There's still a lot of cash to be made. My backline was short, Crisp, Hall, and Hewitt. Hall, got himself to 97, which was good, but he's still sort of losing a bit more cash than I would have liked. But in saying that, sort of Lloyd didn't have a great game. Stewart pulled out. So some of those premium defenders aren't really doing so well outside of sort of Sam Doherty, which people are looking at. So no, I'm happy with that. Midfield with McDonald and Ward, I'd like them to be scoring more. I think Mead will be helped with Wines out this week. But I'm pretty happy with that. Hayes will decide on the Ryder decision. At time of recording, Ryder's been given 2 weeks, but he's appealing. So we will see what happens there. And the forward line, Rochelle, Martin looking great. Will Brody's been fantastic. And then Hugh Dixon, and the news that Nick Nat will be out for at least 2 to 3 months has just shored up his job security and his scoring. So those who still have him and Rochelle, it looks really good. So for my cash making, I'm actually really happy with that. Berry as well, bouncing back with a 96, was even in that sort of tagging role of danger, managed to find the ball. Horn Francis and Dacos are flying. So, yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy. And this week I could get away with either 0 trades or 1 trade, but I am looking at a few different things. I'll start off just talking about the vice captaincy this week. Thursday night, Neil plays Collingwood. Friday afternoon or twilight for Good Friday, Macrae's against North Melbourne. So most likely it's going to be Neil into Macrae, and I'm expecting McDonald to be dropped. So he should become a loophole option. If it's not, I'll just sort of think I'll be back in Macrae anyway, and I probably should have done that last week against the Tigers. He's just, finds that ball so easy, and it's great. He's just been that option every week. He's been either my vice captain or captain, and he'll just continue to do so. Well done to those. I think his Supercoach mama, she had a Gorn VC, and a few people did, and then they got sort of, as we say, kissed on the dick with Stewart pulling out, or actually some other loophole option opening up. So, yeah, that was it was good for them, but so it was good to see Gorney bounce back. Now into what are things I'm thinking about this week. So we've got the biggest issues, and I think that's the questions I'll be getting, is Hinge, it'll be Patrick Cripps, what to do about this ruck situation, and then Butters. And then possibly, if you're in a really good position and you don't have to deal with any of them, maybe what to do with Ward or a McDonald type. So for me personally, I don't like the idea of sort of bringing in an extra backman, because I'm still expecting Dacos to pick up dual position in the next sort of week or in a couple of weeks, when the between round 6 and 7, when those extra roles are added. So I think that's going to take up a position, and I'm still hopeful, say a Pendlebury, possibly even a McGrath with the right role. These guys could pick up dual position. So I kind of don't want to bring in Doherty, though he's still, I'm thinking about it, but we've said I still don't have Jake Lloyd down there either. So I've sort of, if I went Jake Lloyd or Stewart or Doherty, that limits to me for no ability to bring in, say, a Pendles. And if Adams or DeGoey or somebody like that went down, he will move back into the midfield. So I kind of want to not fool my defence yet. There was a couple of questions. I know people talking about having, I think that could be Michiru's, about only having 3 premium defenders. So if you're in that position, then Sam Doherty makes it a lot easier. So for my defence, it's really only Hinge, and seeing what happens with him and his injury. He came off in that Essendon Adelaide game. Wasn't getting as much as the ball as I'd like, but he still, he continued to get loose down in the back line. I would be playing sort of what Bowie was doing the week before, and be 30, 40 metres from the play, getting himself as that spare man. Just couldn't impact that play like Essendon were actually being really smart and short shipping the ball, and that. So that unfortunately was a bit of an issue there with him. He could have easily scored like 60 or 70 before he went off, but he's still got a decent break even. I'd like to keep him, but after O'Driscoll for Fremantle scoring 104, and even though he's gone up 40,000 to 167, it's kind of one of those things like, well, I kind of want that cash grab, great break even. So Hinge to O'Driscoll is probably the definite trade that I'll be doing this week. As I said, I'd like to keep Hinge, but he's that dual position player, gives some more flexibility, and he's going to make some cash. And unlike Bowie, who obviously did make some cash that first week, the second week he did quite well, but then with the cash making but not the scoring potential, it sort of left owners in a bit of a bind of what you're going to do now. Where I think with O'Driscoll being that bit cheaper, he's got more potential to sort of make that sort of extra cash, especially with that 104 now being in his score, and being that he was $100,000 cheaper. So I really I think that's the definite trade. And then it becomes what do I want to do? So Patrick Cripps, the rumor is it's not as bad as what we thought, and he could play potentially this week against Port Adelaide, a Port Adelaide team missing Wines. So there's a big temptation to want to keep him. Obviously we know what Cripps can do when he's on the field. My worry now becomes, well, if he can go off with a minor hamstring like that, these can reoccur. So I don't know if I actually want him in my side for that. If I want to get really aggressive and sort of try to upgrade him, I've got some options there. And then the other one around for me is, do I keep hold of Zach Butters after he's 57? So well done to those people who had Heaney instead of Butters from the start, because Heaney's outscored Butters by about 150, 170 points now overall. So, that's turned out fantastic. Butters played more midfield in the second half and actually, really increased his scoring because he's one of the lowest scorers on the ground at halftime. So we hope with Wines being out this week and Kenny Hinkley, needing to win, you've got to have him in that. So, we're hoping that Butters will get back into the midfield and able to rebound with at least an 80 or a 90. I'm not against people who want to look at the option of trading him if they're a bit worried about how he's going to go. But, in saying that, I've picked him because I think he's going to be one of the premium forwards. And, I don't really want to continue to chase points. So that's the that's what I'm kind of thinking with Butters, keeping him. Hinge down to O'Driscoll, but then Cripps and even Gawn is probably or even Rowell for that comes into sort of more the decision making there. So I floated a couple ideas up this week. If I wanted to be super aggressive, I was even considering Grundy, Rowell, and even Cripps, and holding Hinge if for whatever reason he was right for an extra week, and looking at O'Driscoll, Bont, and Steele coming in. Or it might be just as simple as Hinge, Cripps out, Bont, and O'Driscoll in. I probably like that. I know a lot of people are looking at Steele, and I think Steele is a great get. He's probably bottomed out already. He's going to get those 120s. I don't know if he's going to hurt as much with Gresham and all those other players in there. But he and I think Crouch and the Saints are playing really well, and he's not having to carry the load as he normally does. But I still think, he, as a 120, 130 guy and as a safe captain option, Steele's a great pick. We know Bont went on an absolute heater last year, and looking up their fixture, they have some really good games coming up. I don't know if I can actually share this for those who are watching at home, but the Bulldogs fixture coming up. If I sort of try to get it off my McRae here, I'll share that for those people who are watching along. But I am leaning towards my Bont more than Steele because they've got North Melbourne, Adelaide, Essendon, Port, Collingwood, Gold Coast, and West Coast. There's not much of a softer fixture you can get. And the thing with the Dogs at the moment being 1 and 3, they have to win. So it's not like in previous times where, we'll just move Bont down the forward line, or we'll rest, or we'll look at some options there. He has to, he's their captain, he's their leader. He needs to be around that ball. And even if he had to go forward, those soft games, he can definitely kick some goals. So, the taking out Cripps, putting Bont in, and using Bont as even as a second option from McRae, and some weeks and go, well, maybe I'll just stick the vice captaincy on Bont if say Neil or Tuke was playing after him. It's definitely an option there. So I think Steele, as I said, is going to be a bit more steady, but Bont's the one I'm looking at definitely targeting. So that's that option. The reason I brought Grundy up, as much as Grundy's scoring really well, we are absolutely blessed with cheap rucks at the moment. So we've got at the moment, Nick Nat's injury, so Dixon's security's up, and then they'll bring in Bailey Williams too. Didn't look so good when he sold rucked against North Melbourne, but still put out a 78. And we always talk about rucks really should able to get on the field and score 80. So at 218k, I think he is. Forward ruck is also an option to bring in as well. A lot of people have, want to still look at trying to get Tib English in. There's obviously Cherry's going to get the dual position in a couple of weeks. Hayes, if Ryder doesn't get off his suspension, is going to probably be in the side for at least 1 week, maybe 2. So and then the big one is Bruce, who's got suspended this week. So he won't be playing this week, but he'll be next week in. And, don't really want him R3 because he looks like he's going to turn up most weeks. So that's a definite option. And then we even had just some news in saying Lycett's gone down. And Sam Hayes, who's they've been sort of bringing through the sandful for a number of years now, will be ready to go. So it's another option to look at. So my issue is probably, if I bring Bruce in and then Hayes at 117k, or I think he is, or 123k, start scoring sort of 80s as the number one ruck, you got to able to give something up. So would I rather Bruce on the bench and scoring the exact same as Grundy, which is giving me nothing, or do I move Grundy on, put Bruce on field, and then try to bring in another premium. So it's possibly a hold this week just so I can have a look at what Hayes does, and I can wait a week. But if I wanted to get super aggressive, yeah, I could actually go Grundy straight to Steele. And that's what I was sort of talking about before, going, oh, well, could I bring in Steele and Bont in my midfield, which would then move sort of Rowell or Berry into that M6 position. And then from there, we yeah, so I've got those premium midfielders, and then I've still got a ruck scoring well. So as much as I don't really want to move, say, a Grundy on, just for the sort of points on field aspect, and even sort of getting that cash gen with Hayes as a R3, is definitely something I'm considering. And that's Sam Hayes, not Jack Hayes, who's available as well. So yeah, there's a situation where we could have 5, 6, 7 rucks available for our forward line, or even just as cheap rucks in that R2, R3 position. So we're absolutely blessed with rucks. So the old set and forget hasn't sort of worked as well as it normally would. Well done to those who have sort of got on wits or English again, because yeah, that's paid off really well for those people. And those who were here for my starting side know I was really looking at wits, and really regret not doing it. As Benny Boy's sort of messaging me now, and he just woke up. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Poor Benny's still recovering from COVID, and I'm a bit sore throat at the moment. I just had my third jab, so that's why I sound a bit rusty this afternoon. All right, so some questions that I've had. Oliver, yeah, he's definitely one to be looking at in, say, 2 weeks. Perfect world is De Boer goes to him this week and he sort of stays sub 80 again. So that was, I think Tiss was talking to me about him. I wanting to, unfortunately, had a stinker and VC'd Oliver. So, but if you don't have him, definitely in 2 or 3 weeks, will be definitely somebody on your radar. So maybe even start freeing up some cash so you can get Oliver in, because everybody's going to get on him if he drops to sort of 550. So definitely one there to look at. Abdul, good Richmond man, 61% own Rowell. So by dumping him early, he becomes a pod. Good move. Yeah, I don't mind that. And I've actually also considered about going Rowell up to Steele. If I can get Steele and Bont in for Cripps and Rowell, it's definitely something I've sort of been floating around. And I was sort of talking to Mitcharoos about this the other day. So, yeah, no, it's I don't mind being aggressive. We always talk, and I think Paul Geordie's copped a bit of flack about being aggressive and it hasn't worked out, but we all play it in sort of different ways. And if I can catch up some points on field and hope that Real, well, it goes one or two ways. Like, yeah, Real comes out and scores, and you look like an idiot. If Real scores only 60 or 70 again, still comes out and scores 120, you'll make some of those points up, and you look like a genius. So, yeah, I don't mind it, Abdul, especially if you're going up to somebody. He was also talking about Chapman. I was considering him, but now changed my mind and went to Sinclair. Doc, yeah, definitely. Sinclair looks so good coming off that half-back line. It's it's funny that every year there's sort of somebody comes out of the blue. We had sort of Zeeborn Hall last year. Even like sort of Impey reminded me a lot of, Daniel Rioli reminded me a lot of Impey the year before. Sort of those change of roles. Halfbacks sort of find the ball at ease, and Sinclair's sort of, Sinclair's now the man down in St Kilda's backline. So, yeah, I don't mind that as much. Cheaper than Doherty. I think Doherty's probably the better player. He's the better player, and he's proven. The only issue there, Sard, Williams, at some point, I think, maybe Doherty sort of evens out a little bit more with his scoring, but the role looks fantastic. Where I don't sort of see who's taking that off Sinclair. They've used Jimmy Webster in the past, a few years ago and stuff, but Highmore's playing in the reserves, so it's sort of Sinclair that they're always looking at. So as a real pod, I don't mind that. I forget who asked me about Travis Boak too the other day. Definitely looks good this at the moment. With Wines out, he should go well again this week, though I think he might get some attention from Hewitt. But at the same time, he seems to do that this every season. Starts off on fire and then sort of phases off a bit. But then I think what's Boak now, 34 years old, so you kind of expect that. He's got the legs in the tank. And he's done all these pre-seasons, so he can probably start the year off a bit more on fire, but it does catch up. So maybe not him compared to some of those other guys we're looking at, but at the moment, if you've started him, I tip my hat to you. I think Sean Fear asked me a question: English, Heaney, or Taranto for your forward line, especially if you're looking at trading at Butters. Yeah, I wouldn't. As I said, I'm personally keeping Butters, but I'm not against if you want to be aggressive and trade it. Heaney's absolutely on fire. He got a bit lucky on the weekend because he did kick those two important goals, which took his score from 80 to 130. But yeah, couldn't knock that. I think Taranto more long term is a solid option. He's playing that midfield role. Toby Green will be back soon, which means he'll play more midfield. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Taranto. And Timmy English, well, he's looking really good in that ruckman. I think he's going to average 100. I just don't know. It's one of those things. Is he going to have those other big scores in him? Probably some weeks and that. But the problem is what happens when they do eventually play Steph Martin. So you're splitting hairs there a little bit. I'd say, Sean, if you need cover for your ruck, say you've got Bruce or Witts in there, I'd rank English first. If you're a set and forget player and you've got Gawn and Grundy in there, then I'd put Taranto, then Heaney, then English. But I don't think you can go wrong with either. If you've got the money for all of them, sort of flip a coin and what you like. Heaney's got a really soft draw coming up too. But yeah, I like Taranto's midfield role a bit more than that. So as I said, I'd have Taranto, Heaney, then English. But if you need the ruck, yeah, go English. That's a super question there, Shawnee. Who else has reached out? Nico. As I said, good off spin bowler. This guy, Bombers man, has asked me about Dusty. Still got Dusty. I don't know why you still got Dusty in your team, Nico. I'm pretty sure I told you 2 weeks ago to trade him out. You definitely have to look at one of those options that Sean's just brought up about Taranto, Heaney, or English. If you don't have one of them, jump on. If you have neither of them, as I said, maybe you can go Taranto, but I'm not knocking you if you want Heaney or English because they're both great options. So definitely get on one of them, mate. And then I always muck up Mitch, but Mitchikos on Twitter reached out and asked me about Bowie and Ginnivan to Doherty and O'Driscoll. I really, really like that. Bowie's obviously peaked out in cash. You can get away with him for another week and could rebound and go really large. But yeah, Sam Doherty's going really well. Get that cash for O'Driscoll. Ginnivan, unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him this week and that. And I think that's where Chris is cursing himself because he brought in Ginnivan instead of Martin. Doherty, by all means, go and get that option in there. I really like that. So he doesn't have trips. So, that's you've worked out really well there. So, people are going to be trading for that. So, you can go out and use those trades, definitely. Rail seems to be another one I've got a few questions on, and that's what I said Abdul before. It's one of those things you want to go up unless you really want to make cash and you think, say, you have bench cover. If you're in a situation where you've got Dacos or Jason Horne-Francis as your M9, and you've got Rowell on your field as well, then there's no real problem with trading, say, Rowell down to an O'Driscoll, bringing them on field because they look pretty solid scorers, those expensive rookies, and then just keep that cash for a couple of weeks because then you can upgrade, say, your Berry or somebody else up, or you might still have Bowie, and through loophole putting a Driscoll back, you can bring in Petrarca or Oliver, especially if you don't have Oliver. Both of them are going to, as I said, drop under 600,000. So you definitely want to look at that. There's some options there. As I said, continue to reach out. I'm happy to answer some questions if you want to shoot me them on Facebook or Twitter and that, or the boys, Ben and Chris. I know Benny's travelling really well at the moment, apart from obviously his health, but we hope you get well there, Benny boy. Happy super coaching everyone, and look forward to talk to you soon. So it should be a good week, and we're only a couple of weeks away from those dual position players, which will make things really exciting. So good luck, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.